Welcome everyone. I am so excited to present the content we got today for Microsoft Build. I am Srikumar Nair, Principal GPM on the Microsoft Dataverse team. And today I'm joined with my colleague, Rakesh.
Hi, I'm Rakesh. I'm a Principal PM lead on the Dataverse team, working on Copilot Studio and Knowledge.
All right, so what we're going to show you today is how can you bring all your data and make it work the magic for your agents. So the session is going to focus on transforming data as knowledge for your agents. As we look at the enterprise scenario today, we have more than 9 zettabytes of data spread across different enterprise systems, and 44% of that data goes uncaptured. And the problem there is people don't know where the data is, people don't know how to access these systems, and then 68% of that data going unused is a sheer waste of the data and the time that you spend collecting that data. So in this session, we are going to see quickly how you can bring all the data come into play and transform your digital transformation using the AI revolution that's happening today. So what are some of the top challenges that we see today?
As you've seen over the last couple of years, right, everybody is using LLM-based technologies, and LLMs are good at general knowledge, right? But what really the enterprises care for is their agents that are built needs to use the data that's residing within their enterprise sources. So that is a huge problem that's faced by thousands and thousands of enterprises out there today.
Yeah, and they come in all shapes and all sizes, as we know, right? Some are structured, some are unstructured, some are semi-structured. And then above it all, moving data from one place to another is a big nightmare. It takes months and a lot of effort only to realize that I have to set up security and governance and everything again. So given these challenges, what do we have today to show? We have the knowledge platform with Microsoft Copilot Studio, which has come up with a unique solution of a knowledge platform that provides you real-time integration as well as semantic structured RAG that it can do on your data. So over the period of this session, you will be seeing different patterns that we have implemented to suit your needs. In some places, we will index the data, ingest the data, and create indexes for you so that you can get the best quality of knowledge when it comes to getting answers through your agents. At the same time, there are places where your line of business systems have tight security and you don't want to tamper with that security. You want the system and data to stay in place while making the agents talk to them and do the RAG process. By the way, what is this RAG process? Do you know, Rakesh?
Isn't it retrieval augmented generation?
Thought so. What is that? But it sounds fancy.
It is indeed.
Yes, so retrieval augmented generation is basically what we were talking about earlier in the session. Rakesh was talking about LLMs have the world knowledge, but is that world knowledge what will help you in for your agents to do the job in your enterprise or organization? Definitely not. So this is where the RAG process comes in. What we do is we augment the LLM knowledge with your data, with your enterprise data, making it more relevant and more reliable to be used in your enterprise. So with that, as you can see here, different data sources like Dataverse, files, and Salesforce and SharePoint, all that knowledge coming together behind the knowledge platform. And we provide tools to make that knowledge even more effective with indexes and metadata and glossary that you can build on your organizational knowledge that goes into this glossary. Of course, the Power Platform connections that you already have to these systems will play as an accelerator role in getting that knowledge retrieval going for your different agents that you're building. All right, so what are these RAG patterns that we're talking about? The very first pattern is ingest data, where we ingest your data, mostly unstructured data, because we know LLMs do well when you have the semantic index, have the vector embeddings. So we'll ingest that data, create the indexes on it, and give you the best quality that is possible when it comes to the quality from the agents. The next pattern that we will be talking about is indexing your metadata. These are scenarios where ingestion of the data is not possible or not recommended for whatever reasons, or for that matter, it's just your choice that you don't want to move the data. In such case, we'll just ingest the metadata. And what type of metadata are we talking about? These are the table names, the column names, so that when we want to reference some of the user queries and map it to the references of a table where the data might be sitting, it makes the job much more easier to do the RAG or the data grounding process. And these are scenarios where you would have like a Dataverse table or Salesforce table that are talking about some of your CRM process, or for that matter, even an ERP process, because we do support some of the FNO, finance and operations tables as well. The last but not the least is a read-based operation that we can still do with the Power Platform connector. This is assuming we do not have any data, any metadata. You could still see how a maker can connect using Power Platform connector and connect to the source and then configure the knowledge source in the agent so that agents are able to give you a best user experience when it comes to getting knowledge out of your agents. With that, let's move to what we have here from the very first pattern, ingesting data, especially unstructured data. As we already talked about, this data gets ingested into Dataverse, and you don't have to be worried about the security and governance because you already know Dataverse is the data platform that has security roles and the data governance principles all built in, of course, because it is the Power Platform and Dynamics 365's preferred data platform for storing all the data. Then comes creating semantic index, where we leverage Azure AI search indexes under the hood and create the vector embeddings so that we can give you a much better semantic RAG on all of this data. Let's come to the demo of it. So this is where I want to quickly show you on my screen laptop how I can do OneDrive knowledge. So if you have some files sitting in OneDrive, let's go look at how Copilot Studio can help you now connect to those files. And these are files that are evolving in the sense that if you make some changes to these files, your agents can immediately pick it up. And then if because you're choosing folders sometimes, if you drop new files in these folders, those are also going to be picked up by these agents, thereby making sure you don't have to reconfigure all the agents again once you configured a OneDrive path as knowledge source for your agent. All right, so Rakesh and I are going to play a little HR game. We are going to pretend like HR professionals, or at least we are going to make the agent pretend like a hiring helper. And let's see how an agent can help us hire good talent faster. So in this case, as we said, we're going to look at the first pattern of the knowledge where we ingest the knowledge. So here we got a hiring helper agent. You can see the standard topics and agents are there. There's no knowledge added. I'm going to quickly come and start adding knowledge here. So once you open this up, you will see all the different enterprise data sources that you can connect to. The very first one that you will see is files. And of course, up until now, you just had the option to drag drop a file. Now we have this new option that you can connect to OneDrive. It opens up a OneDrive file picker where you can just browse, go to your OneDrive, and here I have some resumes of the candidates. And I'm going to be choosing some candidates that I can use. Or for that matter, you could also go back and select the folder itself. And now let's go ahead and select these files. You can give some more description if you want to add a little more of those descriptions. And what's happening behind the scene is we are connecting to these files and adding them as references into what we should be syncing into Dataverse, and then at the same time starting the file indexing process and some of the embeddings creations. As part of that, you can already see in the background, we have added these files as knowledge, and then all set. Once you go to your knowledge tab, you will see the indexing and everything is ready. Everything is set for you to start asking questions. For example, you could ask who is the best candidate for the role of a product manager. You never know, they might all be product managers, but you will see some of the deep research coming into play and how these agent helps you pick the right candidate for the job that you are trying to hire for. All right, so you already saw how we can use the files that are in OneDrive as reference knowledge to this hiring helper that we are configuring here. And as we do this, you will realize, as with any HR process, you will now have to start collecting the list of the candidates start looking at what is their availability and all that. So let's cut over to what Rakesh has to show us, where he's tracking these candidates on an Excel file and trying to use that as knowledge for the hiring agent. Over to you, Rakesh.
Thank you, Sri. So let's take a look at it, right? So what Sri showed was a bunch of resumes like PDF document, PDF and Word documents that are being added. But when you talk about unstructured knowledge, it's much more than that, right? Many customers just have their unstructured knowledge in like Excel files, CSV files, and these contain very pertinent information that are necessary for helping an agent make the right decisions, right? So let's take a look what that is. So in this case, I have a Excel file that has a lot of details around the past hiring, the roles, when the candidate was applied, when the phone screen was, what was the outcome, etc. So I'm going to drop this file as a knowledge source, and I should be able to ask complex questions around how long it took a candidate to move from the phone screen to the offer date, or what percentage of them were actually hired, etc. And you can cut it across different role types, different source types, etc. So the way we do it is pretty simple. I come to Copilot Studio, add knowledge, and I can just drag and drop a file and just drop this file, give a name and description. I'm just going to add this thing. Once it's added, what we do is we index the content within into the Dataverse service, and depending on the file, we might run additional tools like code interpreter as appropriately to really provide complex answers to complex questions the users might ask around that. So once it takes a few minutes for the indexing to complete, and then you should be able to ask questions. So with that, you saw how you could add different kinds of file, whether it's Word documents or PDF documents, or even entire folders into OneDrive, or you can add an Excel or a CSV into the agent, and we would do the right chunking approach and provide the response appropriately. So with that, now take a look at what does the next pattern look like when it comes to knowledge.
Yeah, this is so exciting, right? What you saw in the pattern one, you could just ingest so many files in OneDrive. You could look at Excel. You could actually do queries where you can do quantitative search on this Excel knowledge or rows of knowledge that is sitting in the Excel files. Let's now move on to the pattern two. Rakesh, why do you think people need pattern two when pattern one is so good?
Yeah, when we talk about knowledge scenarios, right, I classify into like two different patterns, the search and the query. Search is where you have to search for certain things within your enterprise knowledge sources, and query is where you have to find a specific piece of information contained within your enterprise data corpus, right? So depending on the scenario, you might do a combination of search or a query or one or the other.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when it comes to structured and unstructured, the key difference is unstructured knowledge is all about just getting chunks of information, whereas when you talk about structured, it's all about queries that require aggregation, joins, and questions that are like how many open opportunities are there on the table and those kind of questions. And not to forget, there are requirements that some of your data does not have to move out of the system because you spend years configuring security on it. So in such cases, we don't want to ingest those data. You tell us that we just want to connect to it. You just point to the data, and then all the security settings out there are completely honored. And we already mentioned how we honor that is because we just connect to the data, look at the metadata, just use this metadata as reference, and then fire real-time queries to the source through the same protocols like OData or the connector protocols to get you the data that is needed and get the agent really what it needs to give you the right answer. So with that, let's cut over to look at what some scenarios here look like. In this case, we are going to be talking about how you can make the data sitting in SharePoint list and Snowflake in this hiring process. And how does all that come to life is basically what we're going to see in the next demo. Over to you, Rakesh.
Thank you, Sri. So let's take a look at the pattern two, right? So we're really excited to showcase some of the new work that we have that we are launching at Build, right? We have been listening to customer feedback a lot, and SharePoint list constantly came across as one of the sources where you need to be able to ask questions like how many, what's the average, etc. The computational questions on things that are used in SharePoint list. So let's start with one of the canonical scenarios where SharePoint list is used in a hiring situation, and let's take a look at it. You could see that I have a SharePoint list where I am tracking the interview status of different candidates, right? So you could see that who the candidate was, where the resume is, whether they have gone through phone screen, the first rounds and second rounds, etc. So let's see how we can add this as a knowledge source in an agent, right? And what you'll see is that it's the same similar experience that you are familiar with of adding a SharePoint source. So I click on Add Knowledge and click on the SharePoint tile. And when I go to the Browse Items, in addition to files and folders, you'll see a list options also show up here. So in this case, I can just do the interview tracker list here and confirm the selection. And I'm going to just stick with the default name and description for it. I'm just going to add this knowledge sources. So with that, now you will be able to ask very complex questions or mathematical questions on things contained within a SharePoint list directly using on this agent. This pattern of not moving the data and using the query, it doesn't really end there. We can apply it to more complex systems, more data warehouse systems and all. So we are really excited to announce the support for tabular sources like Snowflake and Databricks and a number of other sources that are out there. So in this particular case, let's look at how we can add a Snowflake knowledge source. So Snowflake, as you might know, is one of the most popular data warehouse solutions. And in this particular case, in this HR scenario, all my employee history, current employee history is actually stored in this data warehouse. So I'm going to add this thing as a knowledge source and see how I can leverage this data. So I click on the Snowflake icon and I create a connection. The connection is already created in this agent. So I click on this employee history table. So before even adding the data, I can click on this icon here to get a preview of what's the data that's contained inside this table. As you can see, it contains a bunch of, it's a snapshot of the data that talks about bonus percentage, education, skill, etc. of these different employees that I have. So I kind of come here and click next here, and I can finish adding this knowledge. But not only that, I can click on this advanced here and then provide really specific data clues to the system to help answer the questions through synonyms and glossary. So let's take a look at what that is, right? So in synonyms, I can click on this synonyms and say, for each of these columns, what are the other names that may be associated with it, right? So for example, in my system, there's a column called education, but people might refer to it as degree or something else. I can keep adding synonyms like that. Or another example could be PTO balance. I can say it's like PTO balance is equal to vacation balance. So the system would know that when somebody asks about vacation, it's actually referring to the PTO balance of these employees. So this helps map the specific column names that you have in the system to the natural way in which people might be asking questions against that agent. And not only that, through glossary, you can actually add specific company-related terms to help better transform this query. So for example, I could add something like FML, which is, it stands for family and medical leave, right? Which is a pretty common thing that we might ask. Or something like people might say performance improvement plan. So all the things that people might ask when using different acronyms, company lingo, etc. This helps us, the system, convert those natural language queries that contain these kind of phrases to really help form the right query and provide the right response to the user. And I click on add here, and the knowledge source will be ready in a couple of minutes, right? The important thing to note here is that there is no data movement here. The data resides in this case Snowflake. At runtime, we are just converting the user query into a API call that the system understands and simply executing the API call, enabling you to provide the response. So any source role-based access control and any policies that you might have configured in your source system, in this case Snowflake, will be completely honored at runtime. With that, I'll hand it back to Sri.
Well, that was mind-blowing. Starting with simple files, going all the way to complex systems like Snowflake. And then you saw how the glossary and synonyms comes into play. We talked about simple concepts that we all love, vacation balance and time offs. At the same time, some scary things like performance improvement plans. And all that is your organizational language that you use that LLMs may not be trained on. And this is where we provide those options for you to configure and train somewhat the agent to understand this enterprise language that you're using. And that's where the RAG process comes in. You are augmenting the LLM knowledge for retrieval to do the best job that these agents do. With that, it's time to move and look at the third pattern that we have here, which is the read operation using Power Platform connectors. And what is actually happening here is we are using the power of the Power Platform connectors to bring together all the 1400 connectors that you have and use the read operation on it as a simple API call and make the connection. Sometimes these are not needing your semantic APIs or not needing the natural language to API conversions. In this case, all you need is to read a ticket number or just look for an opportunity ID. In such cases, we use the read operation. At the same time, these connectors are also powerful, and you will see that in the demo in a few while, that they can connect to semantic indexes also that you might have created in Azure AI Search. And that is one of the examples that we are going to show you now, how this hiring agent can connect to those semantic indexes and get you a knowledge quality that you're looking for. With that, I'll hand it over to Rakesh again to show you how the power of connectors and the Azure AI indexes that you may have in your subscription can be used as knowledge. Over to you, Rakesh.
Thank you, Sri. Yeah, so we saw two patterns there initially, right? The first with respect to the ingestion of data. The second relates to the querying of the data without actually data movement, but really indexing the metadata of the systems. And now we're going to see a kind of like two scenarios. The first one is really one where we're using the Power Platform connector to see how you can connect to a system and then leverage everything that is the goodness of that is created in the Azure side and then add it as a knowledge, right? So let's take a look. So the same experience that we have been showing you here within the knowledge experience in Copilot Studio, I click on Add Knowledge, and I see the Azure AI search index here. So in this case, I've already created a connection using my Power Platform connection, and I see different kinds of knowledge sources, indexes that are already created in the Azure search, right? So in this case, I can click on here to get a preview of the size of the document, what kind of index is configured there, and just pick the right index, and with just one click I can add this as knowledge, right? This helps you to bring the best of what you might have configured within your Azure site directly into Copilot Studio in just a couple of clicks, right? Great. So now that we saw three different patterns, right? In the first pattern, we were just indexing the data for different types of unstructured content, and the second pattern, we were querying the data without actually moving the data. It was indexing only the metadata to help translate a user question in natural language into a corresponding API call that system understands. And the third pattern, we're just using the connector to kind of go to a particular source and then retrieve the right information. Now, there are some scenarios where you will need to do a combination of these three together. So let's take a look at what such a scenario would be, right? In this HR case, imagine I'm an HR professional. I am using Salesforce as my system where all the tickets related to my candidate tracking is logged, And I might also have some unstructured data like help articles that are related to candidate tracking, monitoring, etc. all there. So how do we bring all of this together? Let's take a look at that. So similar to what you saw earlier, so you come to knowledge, I click on add knowledge, then I'll see the Salesforce tab, Salesforce tile within my knowledge tab. And I click on it. And as you saw earlier, you can use the same connection that is used for all Power Platform operations, like the same connection that if you have a Salesforce action that you might want to add, it's the same connection that will be used. I click on that, and I can add the different tables that are in Salesforce there. So if I click on account, for example, right? Come and take a look at the preview, similar to how you saw the preview of the tabular sources. So as you can see, the knowledge base articles has information that an agent should have. And not only that, along with such an unstructured data, you might have something called a tabular data like cases, right? In this case, the case would be you have tabular data there, you have the information related to different cases. So similar to how you saw the tabular data as well. So, and now once I have selected both these, I come here and click on add. And now with this, both kinds of knowledge is being added to this agent. So what happens is, depending on the user query, if it's related to the tabular data that's contained in Salesforce, we will convert the user question into a query and then execute against Salesforce. But if it's a question related to a knowledge base article, which is mainly unstructured data, then that content is indexed and chunked on within the Dataverse service. So we'll use that to provide the response. And if it needs both, we'll use both of them to provide the response. So irrespective of what the user question is, you will always get the right answer depending on the scenario. With that, let's take it back.
All right, that was very exciting to see all the knowledge sources being accumulated for the hiring helper agent to now come into action. The OneDrive files, the Excel files, the files that we had collected and given as resumes all coming into play. And then of course, the Snowflake data that we provided besides the Salesforce data that we added at the end. And now let's take a look at the demo of how the hiring helper is going to help us hire candidates faster and find the best talent to get us do the job.
Let's see this in action. So I'm going to ask a question about who's the eligible candidates for an open product manager role I have. So it's going to search through all the candidate resumes that I've added from OneDrive, and the agent will provide me a response. As you can see, it provided a pretty thoughtful response looking at the different resumes and even provided some additional qualitative aspects to it. Now let's take a look at the second scenario. Here, I'm going to ask a complex mathematical question around the Excel file that I had uploaded. It had a lot of information around different interview stages and timestamps and all. So here, the system knows that beyond just doing a simple knowledge retrieval, it needs to invoke code interpreter behind the scenes to answer such a question. So it does just that and provides you with a very specific answer that helps answer a complex question within an Excel file. So for the second pattern we discussed earlier, let's see how a query pattern can retrieve right results from the different knowledge source. So here my interview list is maintained in a SharePoint list, and I'm going to ask questions around different interview stages. And as you can see, the system provides you with a specific answer, a quantitative answer from the SharePoint list that's added. Now continuing on pattern 2, I'm going to ask a question about my existing employee's salary, which is stored in a Snowflake data warehouse. As you saw earlier, since I had added that knowledge source, the system is going to translate this user question around max salary into a SQL statement and then into an API call the system understands and provide me with the right response. As you can see, the max salary in my current company is around $200,000. Now for this scenario, we're going to see a combination of scenarios 1 and 2. So I'm going to ask about what are the high priority cases that are open since the last 7 days. And as you saw earlier, the cases are contained in a Salesforce instance that I've added, which is a classic tabular data source. So here it's going to do similar to what you saw with the Snowflake example, where it's going to convert the user question into a SQL statement and then execute against Salesforce. So looks like this is one high priority case that's open, right? So I'm going to ask a follow-up question based on that. So as you saw, I'm just asking you using natural language, what was this case about? And the system knows the specific case I'm talking about in this instance. So it's going to come back with the details of that specific case. And I look at it, I see that it's actually about an email delivery issue. So naturally, my next question is, how do I address such email delivery issues? And you'll remember that I had added a Salesforce knowledge base articles as also, which contains all this unstructured data around common troubleshooting things as knowledge. So the system that directly goes and fetches the details of the knowledge base articles, which includes the citation link to the article directly that's in Salesforce as well. So this way you get a full end-to-end experience.
Wow, that is an awesome hiring agent that I would love to buy. Correct, Rakesh?
Absolutely.
Yes. So don't just look at this hiring agent, but let's also look at what our customers have been able to do with all these knowledge sources that we have lit up behind the scene.
Hey, I'm Praveen Rajaram from CSX. I'm a software architect in enterprise architecture team. CSX as a company, we are one of the largest freight railroad transportation company in United States. We serve around 23 states across US and also part of Canada. We have around 21,000 track miles in the East Coast region of the country. We move to different type of goods from agriculture, containers, coals, automobile, a lot of through our network. So one of the use case we were looking into it is how we can help our customers and customer service support team using the AI capabilities which is evolving in the market. So today, our customers do business with CSX through shipcsx.com, which is our online portal. We have around 40,000 registered users, and we have active 7,000 users per day who visit us to do different business functionality like planning, shipping, tracing and equipment, or payment. They do a lot of stuff here. So we wanted to give a like first-class experience for our customers. So we started looking into tool Microsoft Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry, where we were able to build an AI agent called 𝗬𝗍𝒑, which was embedded on our ShipCSX customer portal, where customers were able to get all the answers right without even having a human involved. They were able to get all the answers at the first shot. And at the same time, when we embedded, our business wanted to see how I can use existing knowledge document, like how to guides and frequently ask questions through this AI agent. So we looked into different solutions. One of the solution we ended up is the Copilot Studio, where we were able to use all these documents, upload into the AI agent within few hours. Behind the scene, it did all the magic for us, and the outcome, what we saw from these knowledge source was tremendous using the agent. And then also our nature of the document, how to guides, and these frequently asked questions changes that pretty often. So without involving technology or pro code here, we were able to use Copilot Studio's knowledge article capabilities, where without having technology involved, business is able to upload these documents and are readily available for our AI agent. So overall, the Copilot Studio gave a pretty good experience for our customers. We are seeing a lot of usage. At the same time, we have the scalability to add more agents to the 𝗬𝗍𝒑, and we hope we are going to give the better experience for the customers.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Martin from Ipsight, a cybersecurity company trusted by more than a billion internet users. I represent the web development section, where our solutions are used by tens of thousands of customers every day. To cope with all challenges, our solutions must be smart and secure. I want to share with you how we built a secure AI chatbot using Microsoft Copilot and Azure AI Search. This reduced the number of support tickets handled by the human agents, improved overall response time, and enhanced customer satisfaction. To cope with these challenges, we finally decided to use an orchestration layer based on the MCP framework, which is fully under our control, and uses an open source large language model with guardrails to protect the system. This layer acts as a doorman, verifying the input and routing the user's questions to an appropriate AI solution that can provide the best answer. These AI solutions can be SaaS platforms like Microsoft Copilot Studios, which in our case are managed by different teams. Additionally, we can integrate CRMs, human chats, and integration to internal APIs, which is always challenging to connect with SaaS platforms for security reasons. There are many business scenarios where you want to provide more detailed information for a user's question than what is publicly available on your websites. To make this possible, we integrated Azure AI Search as a knowledge source for Microsoft Copilot Studio. When we deployed the Azure AI Search instance and imported our data, the integration with Microsoft Copilot Studio was seamless and easy. We just needed to add a new Azure AI Search knowledge and set it up. When we properly configure the description, which helps GenAI decide when to use this knowledge, followed by the connection settings and selecting the right vector index, we could enrich our public website information with internal data.
Geno Energy is the largest oil producer in Ohio and one of the largest natural gas producers in the state. To do this, we leverage the Microsoft Power Platform to help us integrate our production data with all our applications so that way we can make better, quicker decisions.
Some of the problems that we've faced as a business is how quickly we've scaled up. We've gone from trucking about 8,000 barrels of oil to trucking about 70,000 barrels of oil. Using the Power Platform, we can leverage the integration with third-party vendors. We can give apps to those that are actually doing the trucking.
So with the Microsoft Power Platform, you could build exactly what you need for your business users and ship it in days or weeks, not a matter of months.
Developed 30 different Power App applications that communicate to 30 or 40 different vendors, 150 different personnel in the field, and all that's live data coming from our field level. Big challenge we face being in Eastern Ohio is cell phone connectivity. We leverage Dataverse and its offline capabilities. They're in the field in the middle of nowhere trying to make decisions. We use offline capabilities via Dataverse to make that happen.
We're currently building agents with Snowflake as a knowledge source. So right now, for our field operators, we have to write a lot of complex queries and reports. But a lot of times what happens is a field operator will look at the data and then want a small tweak to the data source. Previously, we had to have different business logic to try and get our data into the right spot. Now, with this connector, we're going to be able to consolidate all that into one place, which makes it super easy to manage. So that way we know there's one source of truth. This greatly simplifies the workflow for us and help our business operators make much quicker decisions. Now they would be able to ask the agent directly and get an answer immediately so that they can make a better decision.
Wow, fantastic. It's so lovely to see our customers using all these new knowledge sources that we're announcing at Build and everything coming together. Thank you, Rakesh, and this was an awesome session. But before we close, let's take a look at some of the takeaways that we have here from this session. We definitely have knowledge sources that will help you get unstructured knowledge ingested into Dataverse, create the semantic index, and give you best of the knowledge sources that we can think of. That included the files, the OneDrive knowledge sources. We are also lighting up Salesforce and ServiceNow structured, unstructured items there that can be used as pattern one And then, of course, Confluence is also being added. At the same time, for pattern 2, where we are saying we will do the natural language to API conversion at runtime, where you don't have to move the data. Some of the structured knowledge sitting in ServiceNow, Azure SQL, Snowflake, Databricks, everything coming to light, and you can get your hands on all of these knowledge sources soon after build. And then, of course, not to forget the last one, where we are leveraging the power of the connectors, where you also saw the demo of how Azure AI Search comes to light there as knowledge sources. With that, we would like to conclude this session. Thank you, Rakesh, and hope you enjoy playing with all these knowledge sources and lighting up your agents. Thank you.